All right, here we go. Here we go. It's a Wednesday night. Holy shit, I haven't come down from 5 o'clock Pacific time when the NFL schedules came out. I was bouncing off the walls, yelling, screaming, glass overflowing record-wise for our Las Vegas Raiders. It was an exciting time, and now Soren Petro's in here with special guest JVT because we wanted to talk NBA. And John, if you want to sit out while we talk football, buddy, I know you're mostly NBA. So.
That's right.
It's a running joke now. John's the NBA senior NBA analyst, and everyone on his station now disrespects him like he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about from an NFL standpoint. But John does. So
I will say, I probably looked at like 2 NFL schedules so far today. So
all right, well,
it's
vacation
break
day.
Perfect. We got to have on, right? That's exactly one more than I've looked at.
Yeah, we got week 1 lines. We got Chiefs schedule. We got Raiders schedule. We're good to go. So what's up, Petro? Well, you were off the air by the schedule release, right? So you were probably dealing with mostly leaks. Did you guys talk about the leaks? Were you able to confirm leaks throughout the show?
I tell you what, when the schedule came out, I was trying to figure out why a 5th grade girl softball umpire feels the need to squeeze a strike zone. But no, during the show, yes, we had uncovered 6 of these 17 games of the Chiefs already. Like, yeah, have you noticed that like the NFL, like everything's a secret? They can't say anything to anyone, but the moment they have something that they're not supposed to release, they leak it out there. Like maybe this is their plan. Like, right. Okay, let's slow drip the news all day, and then I'll bring everybody in for the show. I did not watch. Like I said, I was at a softball game. I didn't watch the show live, but I was watching like the rebroadcast on the NFL Network, and I was like, I do appreciate that the NFL is going to make this a show, but having Michael Irvin scream about the Cowboys, like to open it, I'm like, oh, same shit, different day. Like, and I don't hate. I'm not a hater on Michael Irvin, but like, no, there's actually no analysis. It's just a bullshit tease, and Michael Irvin's going to scream about the Cowboys constantly, and then Rich Eisen's going to try to act like it's funny, and people are going to laugh at things that aren't funny, and it's the typical NFL Network production. So I bailed like 10 minutes in, so I can't tell you anything else about the show.
Well, I would imagine because the Chiefs are awesome and they have high expectations that the schedule might not be the most exciting thing. But I know here in Vegas.
Oh, no.
I'm just going to say in Vegas, our angle is a little bit different. Like we had an NFL team last year. We didn't get to show our stadium with fans in it. The fans never got in the stadium. We didn't get to fleece all you buffoons who are going to come into town and drop money all over the place. We are going to rape these visiting fans, not literally, but you know how much money, how expensive these tickets are going to be? I mean, we've already talked about the travel, the insanity of trying to book vacations. Do you know how nuts Vegas is going to be for the opposing fans coming in?
Like I got, our buddy Archie, I've had this conversation with him at least a dozen times since it was announced that the Raiders were going to Vegas. Schedule comes out. Week 10, Chiefs at Raiders. Road trip, ? No. Absolutely not. I'm not going, they're not going anywhere, I think. It's not a 1-year stop in Vegas and then on to San Antonio. Shit, no, I'm not going. I'm not when they're raping and pillaging, right? Not literally, as you said, all the fans for ticket prices because it's the first year NFL football is playing in Vegas. No, I'm not going. I'll see you in 3 years.
By the way, I love this message right here from Brady.
Finally,
$675 a night per room.
Resort fee only.
Because we tax those. Can I tell you, if I get one more Raiders fan from outside the market who's like, it's not your money that paid for the stadium. It's the tourist money. It's our money, jack-offs. We can use it for anything we want. We used it for the stadium. So, man, those weekends, and I'm being facetious. I don't want people killed when they come in here, but Vegas is going to look to make up a lot of the money they didn't make last year, right, John? I mean, you hear it. I mean, you guys are based out of South Point. I mean, South Point's pretty nice, but I'm sure South Point's going to be like, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Chiefs fans, yeah, we got rooms for you. Here's a weekend package, $1,700 for 2 nights.
Of course, and then the report comes out that the value of the Raiders goes up, right? What are they, a top 30 franchise, whatever it was? And of course, the immediate thought is
in the world in all of sports.
Yes, yeah. So no, top 30 franchise in the NFL. That would be a very high bar to leap over. But no, like this is great. Like I'm very excited for this, and I was very much in the camp of our money. What the hell are you talking about? And so to see a lot of the people go like, no, you don't have to pay for it. Like, yeah, we do, but come on down. Welcome with open arms. You come on down. You take all the space you want. You rent all the hotel rooms you want. We'll take it. It's going to be fantastic.
Can I just say that as a guy who sits and listens to Florida and Texas and Nevada, no taxes, there's no taxes. Listen to somebody who lives in the state, because I try to explain that, like every now and then somebody will get all uppity here and be like, well, when you take the taxes in California versus the taxes in Texas, I'm like, there are taxes in Texas and taxes in Florida and taxes in Nevada, you jackasses. Trust me. They're there. They're buried. There's a reason why it's 50 cents a gallon more for a gallon of gasoline in Nevada than it is in Kansas City, right? Like, you're going to pay the taxes. It's buried somewhere. But I just love to hear it. So any Kansas City person that thinks that, like, this whole bullshit about, like, oh, well, there's no income tax in Florida. Yeah, there's a tax on farting in Florida. Okay, so trust me, it all comes around.
Yes, and here's a good point. Also, very shitty schools in a lot of the states that don't have income tax. What do you, Petro? What are you guys paying right now for gas?
Since I drive, until I went back into the office today, or yesterday, I drove 1,000 miles last year, so I didn't really pay attention. But I want to say we're in 279. Does that sound right? Like, where are you at?
I paid $3. I got bargain basement price today. I paid $3.45, and and I know California. We played a piece yesterday in California, which was funny because they did a man on the street interview, and it was Mark Curry, Mr. Cooper, and they didn't actually address him as hanging with Mr. Cooper guy. But anyway, they were talking about prices in LA County. We're at $4.65, $4.85, and they found a station that was $5.99.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not even in North Carolina, where they're putting gas in plastic grocery bags. In the bag.
It's like leaking out.
We'll double bag it. We'll double bag it. It'll be fine. Because, what are you going to do? You're going to squeeze that shit out of it into somebody's going to put their finger and hold the tank open, and you're going to squeeze. It's like that. If that isn't the greatest, talk about education. I don't know where that was shot, but somebody thought that shit was going to work.
There was the picture of the people who were filling up the gas cans, the gas canisters, having 12 on the back of their SUV.
Yep.
Fucking idiots. I saw one today. I am the king of storage bins, with the lid, the clippy, the lid on top.
Sure.
There's a lady at a gas pump with an open storage bin filling up whatever those are, 18-gallon storage bins. What are you doing?
Did you see there was a Craigslist ad? I don't know if it was posted in Vegas, but it was a picture of 10 of those red tubs of gasoline. And it was $61 a pop. Come on down and get it, or I can bring it to you for an extra charge. Get the fuck out of here.
By the way, we laugh now. Come July, we may be crying. We might be in the market to try to get some gas.
When they hack all the fuel lines. Yeah.
That used to be $3.45 a gallon. That was a bargain back then.
Listen,
buy a bike.
I'm not going to drift into politics, but just if we can't stop people from hacking us, you figure out whatever government agency needs to get their head out of their ass. When it's water and you have no drinking water, the ha-has will go away real quick.
Oh boy.
When they hack the water grid, it won't be what Tupperware you put in the water in. It'll be it'll be water gangs fighting over the one pump that works.
What do you guys pay when we talk about taxes in different states? What do you guys pay for your car registration?
Well, it's not. The nicer the car, the more you pay, right? I don't know. For the 100,000+ mile car I drive every day, not that much.
All right.
For the wife's car, I have a pain in my side when I pay it.
All right. So you guys do have a graduating.
You don't. It's the same amount for every car.
No, we do. But where I grew up in New Jersey, who knows, years ago, it was it's probably $30 a year. It's probably $75 now. Vegas, John, what do you pay? What'd you just pay?
It's hundreds of dollars a car every year.
But I have an older car that it's like a 5-year-old car. I think I still paid like $415.
Oh yeah,
I think
yeah. We're that's our neighborhood here. We're pretty comparable to Vegas usually on those things.
325.
Yeah, it's all free. It's all cheap. It's all cheap to live in states like this with a no state income tax.
Well, my car that I have now I actually just got, but because of the whole COVID thing, I still haven't like technically registered it yet because I still haven't gone to get the plates because I can't get an appointment at the DMV until like the last week of June. So I've been riding around with that paper on the back of my car that expired like 2 months ago.
I think my wife's car might have been 2 something, but I think it was only for like 4 of 6 months. Or no, I think it was for like it was 2 something, and it was like 9 of 12 months, right? Because she was partway into our timeline or something like that. You know.
Here you go, Petro. Right, you got one of these monster trucks, 2018 Silverado 700 the first time here.
Dude, you remember when I went back there? The other thing that gets you on there is insurance. Remember, I had 2 cars. When I moved back there and I brought the second car out there and then somebody turned in my plates, insurance, and, it was like through the roof. I was like, all right, well, this thing's got to go.
Was that the Corvette?
That was the Corvette, yeah.
When I bottomed out a couple times on some speed bumps.
Yes,
I didn't realize how low it was. Oops.
Steve was driving because he, was one of the few, he was back before his modern approach where he was the guy who hadn't drank that night. So he would drive it home. And I'm like, dude, you gotta go super slow, scrape. I'm like, dude, you do not understand. You have to roll it up onto it and ease it down. And he had never driven a car that was that low. And I swear to God, it's a miracle the muffler made it home. Like he was bottoming it out on every speed bump. Of course, there's 74 speed bumps to get out of any parking lot in Vegas. So I was lucky that there was anything left of the car the first time he drove it back.
Just rip off the muffler.
Is owning a car like that enjoyable? I feel like I would be terrified every time I drove it.
Yeah. Was it enjoyable?
Yeah. You ever seen Red Drive?
Get your head out of your ass. Yeah. You ever gone across New Mexico at 155 miles an hour? Yeah, it's enjoyable.
You ever see someone go up and down Tropicana at 125 miles an hour, beeping the whole way?
Yeah.
It has its moments, is what we're saying.
That's when Trop was nice and empty back then, 90, 98, 97, something like that.
Yeah, that's right. But what the good news was they didn't have the walkovers, so there was the pedestrian to dodge because everything was, just a crosswalk. So made it more entertaining. You got to figure out how it could maneuver.
So can I show you the Raiders schedule, which I was very aggressive today on the air, and I got mocked heavily. I'm very objective on the Raiders. Totally objective. As we've joked before, I actually am. I looked at the Raiders schedule, and there's a lot of people like you said it to us last year, Petro. You were like, God dang, man, you guys are really negative on the Raiders, and you were higher on the Raiders than some of us locally were. And
somewhere in between the two of us lied reality, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were doing well, and then they freaking collapsed. Some of the things that really ail them, Gruden's lack of aggression, the defense falling apart and getting super tired at the end of the year. And, they were 7-5 at one point. They looked like a really good shot to get to the playoffs. So here's the schedule that came out today. This is not some exclusive. It's been out for like 3 hours. And I looked at the schedule.
Wait a minute. Where's the breaking news banner going across the bottom?
Breaking. Raider schedule is in.
Right.
Ding, ding, ding.
I look at the schedule and I see lots of teams with either old-ass quarterbacks who may not make it through the season or young guys. I'm very encouraged by this schedule the Raiders are facing.
First of all, where do I start on the schedule? Like, is it top left, middle left?
Dude,
like,
I looked at it
top to bottom, left to right. Where am I going with this thing?
You're going left to right. I looked at it the first time and I was like, this is nonsense. But we do appreciate the Athletic posting it, so thank you guys. And Las Vegas sponsor in the corner here. So I don't know. Take a look at the schedule and see what you think. I mean, first of all, people look at the beginning and they're like, oh, they're dead in the water. They could start out 0-4. Does everyone not realize what the Steelers were? John, you can start here. Like what the Steelers were at the end of the year and who they brought back to play quarterback?
Or they could be asking, does Steve not understand that the Steelers are the 5th game?
Well, it's actually the 2nd game because the preseason are the top 3.
Yeah.
Game 1.
Oh, okay. All right, my bad. My bad.
That was a good dig, but I finally got one right. Monday Night Football is the Ravens, and I know Petro's always got some stuff to say on the Ravens, like pump the brakes on the Ravens.
Always.
I'm not saying the Raiders are some kind of lock to go to Pittsburgh, but let's stop acting like this is like 13-3 Pittsburgh with Big Ben when he was 27.
Right.
No,
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I also
totally.
think that by the time you get to the bye week, there's a realistic chance where they only have 2 losses. Like this, their schedule's kind of easy. And if you look at, I evaluate like schedules by win totals, right, for like betting purposes. But it also gives you a better understanding of what the schedule are looking at. Like to evaluate them from last year's strength of schedule, I think is a little dated, right? Because those teams have improved. They're different. Win totals account for improved, teams that you're going to face. It's not perfect, but it's a better way to look at it than last year. They have the 29th easiest or the 29th hardest schedule, put it that way. Like their schedule's kind of easy. So I would be really surprised if they're like 6-2, 5-3 by the time they get to, or no, what would that be? They have 7 games. So 5-2 by the time you get to the bye week wouldn't be surprising. The Eagles stink. The Steelers stink. The Dolphins are okay. And they're pick'ems with the Chargers, the Bears, and the Broncos if they don't get Aaron Rodgers.
5-2 would be surprising because it's the Raiders, but it wouldn't be like this will be a battle of semantics. You wouldn't fall out of your chair, right? Because I will tell you this, Kevin Harlan told me this like 10 years ago. He said, you put the passer rating of the 2 quarterbacks that are going to play in the game, and whoever's got the higher one is probably going to win. Okay, so Lamar Jackson, right? Like I think every year their running offense gets more, the defenses get better at diagnosing what they're doing. And Lamar Jackson's not going to just spin it all over the field on you. Ben Roethlisberger is a shell of what he used to be. Tua is a work in progress at best. Herbert's good. That's the one you go loss, right? Because Herbert's the better quarterback and it's on the road.
Wait a second.
Debatable.
Wait a second. John and Adam Hill are the leaders of the pump the brakes on Justin Herbert, correct?
Well, no, listen, I'm the guy who told you. I'm the guy that was down on him when they drafted him, right? But you have to start to come around and give some credit to what he did last year. Listen, we all thought Carson Wentz and Jared Goff were God's gift. So nothing's done until about year 3, right? So I agree. Like he may crap in his hat with new coaches, and he's got a defensive-minded head coach. That to me is a no-no for the modern NFL. And then he's got a former quarterback. He's got his old quarterback coach, and then a new offensive coordinator that was a quarterback coach in New Orleans. And so we'll see how that chemistry all works. 100%. But like we're talking about, we're trying to project the schedule, right? But so like I can give you a reason why the Ravens will run for 350 yards on a shitty Ravens defense. So Ravens win. Steelers defense will sack Derek Carr 9 times. So Steelers win. Dolphins have a better overall roster. So Dolphins win. I mean, like, are we going to go with like how do you want to talk about it? Worst case scenario, or like I was just breaking it down by quarterbacks. And last year Herbert was better.
Keep going with the quarterbacks for the next 3 games, and then we'll come back.
So like Andy Dalton or a rookie, Raiders better. Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, Derek Carr's better. I'm not sold on Hurts at all, right? Like, I don't think he's Russell Wilson. Everyone wants to make him Russell Wilson because he went from one Power 5 school to another. And, I think Lincoln Riley's a quarterback whisperer in college. I mean, I think he may be the new Urban Meyer. Right, that he can let's see Baker Mayfield, piss a drop in Cleveland. Let's see some of the Oklahoma quarterbacks. Everyone loves Kyler Murray. When do we worry about whether or not he goes to the playoffs? Like how many years until it's like can't win the big one? It's this year, right? If he goes 9-8 or 8-9, but puts up some numbers, everyone's gonna be like, yeah, he runs around, he's fun to watch, but shit, he can't win. So, I mean, same thing with Jalen Hurts, right? I think, Lincoln Riley does a great job. So, yeah, I buy it because when you look at the quarterback matchups, and you mentioned it, the one where I go definitively, he's not better. I mean, the history of Ben Roethlisberger is he's better. The pedigree of having an MVP is Lamar Jackson's better. But actually spinning the football and with enough of a track record to say this guy is definitively better, there's not a quarterback there that you say is going to just absolutely outperform Derek Carr, which I think those first 7 games are wide open. But there's other factors that go into it. But from that standpoint, saying the Raiders will be 5-2 at the break is not preposterous.
John?
So I do have to amend something because I was reading the chart incorrectly. So apparently this is flipped in terms of total wins. So they would have the second hardest schedule by win total perspective. But I would agree with the analysis of like Seren and what we're looking at here, just looking at the teams and what we expect from them, like going forward, either before the bye week or when you come afterwards. Like it's tough to go east, I guess, but it's 2021. Like it's not that bad. So you would take on the New York Giants. Like that's a debatable spot where that's a very winnable game. The Bengals, like the Cowboys, like all of these games that you're looking at even post-bye, like these are a lot of coin flip spots. So that ultimately can mean the coin flips in the wrong direction for the Las Vegas Raiders. But I think a lot of these games you're talking about spreads that would be hovering around a field goal. And sure, they might be the underdog at a good chunk of them, but that also means these are perfectly winnable games for them. So like I don't think that this is a terrible schedule by any stretch for Las Vegas at all. Like going into the bye, I could see 5 wins. I could potentially see 9 wins for this team, maybe push for 10, depending on how the defense develops. But I think this is a perfectly manageable schedule for them.
So let me give you the bad news. Like they're twice against, and I know the Raiders, and this may prove to be true, but I don't think you can count on it. If you want to just talk about caliber of teams, right? The Raiders did beat the Chiefs last year, and I do think there's a little bit of kryptonite there with the Raiders for what the Chiefs do. But 2 games against the Chiefs, 1 against the Browns and 1 against the Colts. All right. I think that's 4 games that you would say loss. And maybe the Raiders steal 1. Because I think those are definitively better teams. I'm not buying the Cowboys hype or anybody else on their schedule. But how many games do you go flat out they're beating them?
We did this on Cofield and Company. I had 4. But keep in mind, I also picked them.
What are the 4?
Well, basically, it was like, hey, they better win this game, or I'm coming in screaming and yelling the next day. I think Dolphins, Eagles, Bengals, and Broncos at home. But I also throw in there, I'll be pretty pissed if the Raiders can't beat the Giants, even on the road.
See, I put the Giants in there, but I would push back hard on the Dolphins and Broncos. I know the Broncos don't have the quarterback figured out, but if Teddy Bridgewater can play Alex Smith football, I actually think that the Broncos roster outside of the quarterback, which is the most important part, but unless, if Derek Carr is not going to go spin it for a day, I do think that the Broncos roster is very salty. And so I'll push back on anything against the Broncos being easy.
I will counter with, I guarantee at least a split with the Broncos and a split with the Chargers. The split with the Broncos is based on.
Are you saying split plus or just no? It's 1-1 period, throw it away. It's 2-2 in those 4 games.
Split plus. Split plus because Gruden is not a great coach. Fangio's terrible. So Fangio will find a way. These games are always close. He'll find a way to F it up. And I'll give you the other one. The Chargers will be a guaranteed split, if not a split plus. And I think the Chargers are good, but Monday Night Football, Week 4, in L.A., I think there's at least 50,000 Raider fans in that 85,000 stadium, if not 60,000. If you had been to a San Diego Raiders game and you saw the crowd that drove down from L.A., now they don't have to drive anywhere. L.A. sucks, but there are going to be I'm telling you, that is going to be a home atmosphere. Aside from the small travel, a home atmosphere for the Raiders.
It'll be the only home game the Raiders play.
I don't believe that either. Because
I don't either, but I just wanted to talk some shit for a minute.
I think this first year, as long as the Raiders are respectable, people here who bought the season tickets are going to be so hungry to go to the games. Like I saw Ravens fans, talking trash today, like, oh, it's going to be a home crowd for Harbaugh. I wasn't joking earlier. The tickets are going to be the tickets are going to be so expensive, and maybe they can get some tickets that were held back for the casinos. But the people who spent their money here, they are going to Monday Night Football, the opener against the Ravens. Good luck getting like 20,000 Ravens fans in there. Now that'll change down the road, but this first season, it's going to be real pricey to get in.
It is going to be pricey, but I will tell you, Chiefs Nation will make a presence felt. Like Casey travels, because we're not paying for ski resorts. We're not paying for beaches. Like when the Royals are good and they go on the road, you hear it on the TV, and the Chiefs are like nothing else. Like they owned the Charger games in the soccer stadium. Owned them.
I don't think they have anything on the hard traveling fans of the Dolphins, though. Week 3 is going to be tough.
The Dolphin fans are not going to travel. Philly will travel. Bears will travel. They'll pay the money. There'll be no
Denver will travel.
Yeah, Denver and Kansas City, I know, will travel every year. And in the future, those games will be a risk of having like 12 to 15,000 opposing.
Not after the shine wears off, though. I think like once everyone's been there, done that.
Okay.
I think it'll ease up. I'm like, listen, Vegas is always going to have a harder trek at home than any team out there, right? Until Lahaina Maui gets a team, like the Vegas one is the one that everybody circles. Maybe like the Saints, New Orleans is a destination, but more than anyone else, Vegas is always going to have to deal with the most fans that circle that game is the game let's take a road trip for.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Nick says 9-8. I said 10-7 on the air today. Adam Candy said 8-9. So
Adam Hill said what, 2-15?
we haven't gotten to him yet, so he hasn't chimed in. He'll be in on Friday, so I don't know what
in the chat room.
Well,
grow a pair, Adam. Let's go.
He already chimed in. He expects he thinks the Broncos have one of the best top 5 roster in football. So
I think he's right, but the quarterback's 51% of the equation.
Rodgers goes there. I think Adam's expecting 13-4 with the Broncos.
God, I hope he does.
What's he calling for the Raiders?
I don't know. I'm not sure if he's still here.
I'll text his ass.
Yeah,
I want an answer.
What do you think, John? JVT, did you count through the roster?
I'll go 9-8.
Okay. Yeah, I had him with a good start. I had him with the same kind of good start to begin with, and then obviously it gets the Kansas City Browns back-to-back is going to be a bitch, and hopefully they can come out of that even if they lose the games and not be flat. I mean, 3 out of 4 you got Kansas City, Cleveland, and the Colts. That's tough on the road.
There's Adam.
Adam says 7-10.
I told you.
Well, I think though too, like one of the biggest the equation here for the Raiders is the development of that secondary and what's going to happen with this team. Like if that actually develops into something that's somewhat serviceable. I mean, the last 2 years by DVOA standards has been a top 10 offense. They've just been waiting for a defense that at some point catches up to mediocre. So if that happens, Gruden's done a pretty decent job with the offense. And I think that's kind of the fly in the ointment. That changes everything. If they can actually be adequate defensively, actually might be 9-8 wild cardish team.
By the way, Steve, are you going to come here for the Raiders at Chiefs game?
I have no idea. I gotta see what the schedules look like.
Oh yeah,
right. UNLV basketball. Well, I have UNLV basketball, so if they're on the road.
What's the date on that?
12/12.
Oh yeah, that's a bitch.
Well, it's not a bitch. If I can make it there that weekend, I'll come there. Be a cool trip.
By the way, don't put up that schedule I sent you since it's last year's. I just noticed. The first 2 are good, but the third one, don't put that up.
I pulled up my own. Let's see if I pulled up a 2021. That's correct. Browns in the opener, right? Browns in the opener.
Yeah, Browns in the opener, yeah.
All right. This looks like it's 16-1, 17-0. I don't see how you guys lose. Greatest team in the recent history of football.
What is going on with this schedule?
It was a little you mocked down the other one, but that was kind of professional. This I don't know where I got this from the Gridiron. So look up the Gridiron.
There's altering text sizes and this is a nightmare.
I could make one.
Very, very respected site.
I found what I could find. All right. All right.
The dopey ass in Kansas City sent him last year's schedule, so don't bitch.
It's funny because you're playing the NFC East and it's kind of mediocre. And
wow, that's a gift to the NFC East.
I mean, they squeeze the Packers into the middle of it, and you get the home spot. Where are the losses on the schedule?
They're there. I mean, listen, Mike Greenberg is calling for the Browns outright. Now, mostly because he needs 4 months of a topic because he carries a topic at least 2 months at a time. So this
That's
is when
awesome.
he's like, wait a minute, I get 4 months. I'm calling for the Browns outright. So I'm sure there'll be a half an hour a day, every day for 4 months on Get Up about how the Browns are going to beat the Chiefs. So I'm sure there was a bit of a tactical approach to why he said that. But I actually do think the Browns may end up being the biggest challenger because like the it team changes every year. And so if you eliminate last year's it team, which I think was the Bills, year before that it was the Ravens, year before that it was the Chiefs. If you eliminate like the it team is, can't be, the Bills this year. You can point back to the Ravens. I don't. I think that if somebody's going to storm, it's Browns or Dolphins. I'm not saying it will happen, but I think there's a decent potential. So, the games that are in doubt are the Browns at the Ravens, Bills, Packers with Aaron Rodgers, one of the Raiders games because the Raiders seem to have their kryptonite, and that's it. So they'll get upset somewhere where they shouldn't. 4 games in play, split those, 14-3.
Wow, just that easy. Must be nice.
14-3, but I'll probably pick 12-5 because I don't think it'll be Super Bowl losers don't fare well, but I think this team has the ultimate elixir, which is Patrick Mahomes. So they're not going to crash the way, the 49ers crashed, even with injuries. The Chiefs had injuries last year and went 14-2. So, I'll probably find 4 or 5 losses, on paper, I won't find 5, but I'll probably end up saying 12-5. But
Yeah,
if you want to call out the losses, I think they're hard to find.
Well, so Ryan, I think let me ask you, so I think the Browns outside of the Greeny thing, which makes me somewhat upset. I don't think the Browns are like the it team. I just think they're built very well. And
I agree.
I think that organization has done a really good job, especially addressing the weaknesses in the offseason. But the ones that stuck out to me here were the Browns game. I think the road game against Washington would be a relatively tough one with that defense. The defense is extremely good. And I think that's the best team in the NFC East just because of what they do defensively. And then, like you kind of said, alluded to, they're like either splitting with the Raiders or the Broncos. Like those would, I think, be the spots where this team kind of slips up because outside of it, I don't even think it's like a, hey, the Chiefs are freaking awesome type deal. The schedule's not entirely terrible, right? Like if you're looking everywhere else, I think there are a lot of games where it falls favorably for them. Like you get the Bills at home, Giants big up, like all these NFC East teams. It's a favorable schedule on top of.
Why are you even mentioning the Giants, by the way?
Well, because I'm just looking at this one big block that's right in the middle. It seems to be the biggest font size out of all the.
But are you saying like you think the Giants are a playoff team, like a real playoff team, not a bullshit losing record? Won a crappy division, a real playoff team that can do some damage.
No, I was just going down the list and randomly picked the Giants.
Okay. I just want to make sure. So no, I hear what you're saying. Listen, I do think the schedule from the standpoint that the Browns are at home, the Bills are at home, the Packers are at home, the Cowboys, which I'm not as high on as a lot of people are, that's at home. The Steelers are at home if Ben Roethlisberger has anything left in the tank. I think the home and away part of it smiles on them. Now, what are the Titans? I think the Titans are coming back to earth. Like I think, Tannehill's Tannehill. He had his great moment. I don't think he's a every year MVP candidate. So, but they do have to go on the road to them. I don't buy the Eagles at all. I think it's a dysfunctional franchise. That's a mess. At the Ravens is definitely tough. So I think the home road definitely smiles on the Chiefs. Like they have by last year's win total, which I agree 100% with Von Tobel. I'd rather look at the win totals that are given to them this year by Vegas rather than last year's wins and losses. But by last year's wins and losses, their opponents have a 5-11 win percentage, which is tied for 11th in the NFL, which is not what you're supposed to get as the defending AFC champion. So I do think the schedule, which we saw this a lot with the Patriots, like when your division is not good, I don't want to say sucks because I don't think the division's as bad as the AFC East was for the Pats, but like the division helps them. And then I think the home and aways help them. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of things that smile on them, but I do think at some point kind of boredom has to set in. And I do think that the roster, well, on the top end, when you see their, depth chart, you're going to look at it and be like, wow, this seems really good. Till you get 8 weeks in and 5 starters aren't there, and then it doesn't look near as strong as it used to.
Yeah, see, that's fair too.
I agree. What's their win totals? 12 or is it 12 and a half?
That's what I was just looking at. They need to bump this up. It's 12 and a half.
Yeah, but in a 16-game schedule, almost nobody ever got more than 11 and a half.
It's 12 and a half. And Andy Reid with the Chiefs has never gone under the win total.
I'm the guy who's preached that for years.
He's gone over every year. They keep raising the number. He goes over every year. And you guys just pointed it out. This schedule sucks. This is ridiculous.
I don't know that it sucks. And
every game's at home. Every game's at home.
I don't know that it sucks, and I don't know that it's ridiculous, but I think it does favor them. But I will say this. The math guys don't want to come away from the math. And we talk about the average bettor. Yes, there are going to be many $50. Like if the norm happens, there'll be lots of $50 wins. But the analytics guys will play it under. And they're the ones who make the big bets. It's going to take 20. I mean, I don't know. Like some of the places I go, you can't get more than 200 down.
Right.
Steve, when I walk up, I bet all the totals every year when there's not a pandemic. And $200, I think, is the max bet they'll take from my fat ass. But, like, I'm sure there are guys that can get down more than that. But, I mean, I think it takes 20, I'm a football fan bettors to make up for the analytical bettors. And so that, to me, is a little bit of the riddle. I mean, Von Tobel, you're the guy to ask. Like, how much do the analytic smart gamblers drive the lines versus – the casual fan, the guy that's in for the weekend? Because when I was taking bets in college and even a little bit after college, the sharp players didn't move the lines. Right now, there's a lot of analytics guys that move the lines to where I think a lot of jackass bettors win because the lines react to the analytics and push the line to where dumb decisions actually get paid off.
Well, the respected bettors definitely have their influence on the line more than public bettors would. Well, no matter what the situation is. That's why you always hear things like reverse line movement, things like that. I think respected bettors are always going to have their influence where you're looking at stuff like this in markets like this too. But I'd also say too, like Adam threw this up, it also depends on what you look at. Like Chiefs have the 11th toughest schedule by 2021 win totals. If you use DraftKings, they have the 15th toughest schedule by 2021 total win total. So that always alters too when you're looking at shopping around and looking at these numbers and rating the strength of schedule.
By the way, Petro's question is actually really good, and I was going to do this locally on our show. I saw a big thread last week, John, from a guy who was hailing how Circa caters to the big players, and he's like, oh, this is going to be great, it's the way it's going to be across the industry, and like everyone came down on the guy and was like, are you nuts? He's like, it's going to get worse. With all the volume, these books around the country, they're not taking big bets from the sharps. They're going to get shut out. They don't need them anymore.
Right.
Of course. Yeah. Well, you see it all the time. Like guys betting on golf futures and like books will take like $5 on like a 50-1 shot. You know what I mean? And they'll keep getting cut down until it's like $2.50, like the bare minimum. No, it's 100% accurate. Circa is the outlier. And look, even Circa, like they do a great job with the respect that they've garnered by taking sharp plays and larger limits and things like that. But there's also a lot of events where they don't do as well on some of these books because of it.
The draft for Circa.
I talked to Derek Stevens, came on the set with us right afterwards. He's called it a bloodbath, were his exact words for Circa. Now Circa's going to remain open.
Yeah, of course. I was going to say not to but that's what he told us beforehand. He told us beforehand. He's like we're going to get killed, and they got killed. And it was, but it's their business model. They want for the next couple of years, they want to take, big player money, sharp money. I don't know what they're going to do after.
They're Benny Binion. They're taking the Benny Binion approach. Like, bring it. You advertise, you take $1 million loss, but then you get 1 million people bet $100 that don't know what they're doing, and you make money, right? That's what they're doing, which Vegas needs more of, and I applaud, and I think it'll win in the long run. I think it's a smart move. But, I mean, that's the thing, like KC folks, my listeners, Yeah, I run into guys like, I had somebody ask me, hey, my son, he wants to make sports gambling a career. Do you have any advice for him? And I was like, it took everything I could to be like, yeah, fuck off, to not be my answer. Right? Like, it's like seriously, what movie did you see? Because like, if you're any good, they quit taking your action. Like, that's what I think a lot of people like that have not been in the betting world. The casinos, while they may be regulated and part of a gaming commission, they don't have to take your action any more than Louis the Fish, you know, the local bookie that's been taking your stuff for 50 years. And you start kicking his ass, he's like, I'm not taking your action, right? Like, it's no different. They just have to pay you and not break your fingers, right? But you have to put the money down in advance, so there's no reason to break your fingers. And I think that's a part that, like, you guys, I know this is like 101 for Vegas people, but like being shut out or having limits put on you. But if you start, if you're really good, like, oh, I'm doing great, I'm going to bet 10,000 on the game. Well, they're not taking the bet. So like spreading it around, like we all know professional gamblers. I know East Coast professional gamblers. And one of the guys, what he does, he's basically a freaking, like a sweatshop guy. I was like spreading the money off on like 100 different, offshores and, under the table guys and some legit shit and runners in Vegas. Like, to do it, it's like the managing of the manpower to get enough money down to make it worthwhile. That's the bullshit of it. Right? That's the how you actually make real money.
Yeah, and you might find a book or two where, they're either slow on the uptick or whatever it is, but eventually that well is going to run dry and you're going to be in the situation where you were month, 2 months, however long it lasted. So, Circa deserves a lot of credit for the way they're operating things. But, at the end of the day, I am always curious to see how long that lasts, right? If you're going to continue to kind of take it on the chin in certain events where other books aren't, because they are very, very strict with the money that they take it from who they take it from.
Derek Stevens looks at it as a part of his marketing. So he's much bigger.
Old school Vegas bookmaking.
Yeah, he's an old school casino owner. It's just the way it works.
Put up Joe Jayhawk's question real quick.
Yeah.
No. They're in the business of making money, right? Like, they don't have face recognition software for blackjack card counters to like be like, holy shit, who's this guy? We haven't seen him before. They're all wired in, they're all corporatized, and they're wired into the same security companies. The security companies and the information and data service companies that are identifying players sell to all the same ones. So they're all wired into the same network. So like, that sounds good in theory. Like, oh, you mean if I'm driving up to the terrible Herbst just across the Missouri line into Iowa, like, they definitely won't recognize me. They'll take my $10,000 shit. No, they have the internet as well.
You're not getting them. It's not gonna happen.
Well, you might get them once. Like, I'm not gonna say you're not gonna get them once, but like, the whole thing is like, are you looking for a 10K score? Yeah, you might be able to get a 10K score. Right. Like, are you gonna make a living, stuffing it down their throat? No, you're not.
Yeah. And on the flip side, if you gamble and you have the success of a Floyd Mayweather, yeah, bet whatever you want.
Shut up.
No, seriously.
Right. Oh no, I thought you were buying this bullshit like he's good. No, when you get your ass handed to you all the time, yes.
They know the sharps and they know the buffoons, and the buffoons bet whatever you want.
I always say it: big money is not necessarily sharp money. So whenever you see these big bets roll in, like we were talking about it the other day, Steve, like the Atlanta Hawks were getting all these title bets. Like 50, 80 to 1, all that stuff, $5,000, whatever it is. And, you ask around. And
by the way, can I take that action? Can I take as much action of that as I can possibly cover? Because that is something that I will put my family's future on the line for. The Hawks are not winning the championship.
Well, you can bet the two-way market at Circa, Soren. So there you go. You can bet the
I can get there.
But like that, like those are big bets theoretically. But you ask around and you realize it's a newer group that's just betting. It's not a sharp group. So always remember that too. Big bets are not exactly sharp bets. Some actually respected bettors don't bet limit bets. They're relatively small too. So
By the way, I think I have my first book of Von Tobel that I will preach on the program. Big bets are not necessarily smart bets. I will. I always give credit for where I got it too. By the way, so Von Tobel,
Dude, it's actually
you've
it's
made the
a-
Hall of Fame.
it's a brilliant point because there's a whole thing going on social media now with certain gambling writers, and they love to put out the big bets. And then, I think the assumption is, these people must be in the know, and they're like, no, a lot of them are just awful gamblers. Just 'cause
Or they have so much money they don't know what to do with because they
Yeah.
own a mattress company in Tampa.
Well,
That-
that's not even a bet though.
Go ahead, John. You can let's explain this one because that whole thing has to stop. That he's betting because he's not betting.
Right. And that's the annoying part. So Mattress Mac is actually essentially just setting up insurance policies left and right for himself that are tying into the event and mattress specials, right? So like the Kentucky Derby bet in which he was called a legend, he had a promotion. What was the favorite? I can't even remember the horse's fucking name that was supposed to win the whole thing. But
Medina was
if
like
the horse,
fifth favorite, sixth favorite,
right? Yeah, but if the horse had won it, then you get your stuff for free, and if he doesn't, then you got to pay for it, obviously. So he goes and he hedges his bet. It's an insurance policy for the special at his store, and he goes and bets on the side that would essentially hedge the bet that he has in the store. It's an insurance policy. That's all it is. He is in literally no way going to lose in any of these situations that we've always talked about, and yet it's presented as, hey, this guy's a legend, this guy's awesome, look at him firing away. But in reality, he's really not doing anything except for ensuring his richness. So, I think it's always like with this Kentucky Derby thing, Steve and I talked about it. You actually had to look for multiple articles to realize that, again, it was tied to an in-store special. And he's by no means, whenever you push back against it, it's always like, he's a good guy. What's your problem? Like, yes, I'm sure he is. But you should. That's not the point. The point is you should report him as what he is. And it's a very smart businessman who is ensuring that he is going to maintain his richness, and that's about it. Like, end of story. And he's getting a lot of promotion for it too. I mean, people are probably shopping at Mattress Max, Mattress Emporium, whatever the hell his store is called. You know what I mean? Because it's Mattress Mac. Might as well. It's what it is. So, but it's always bugged me that he's
just
viewed
like
as a
Steve,
betting legend.
ensuring his richness every day. He rolls into the office.
How'd you know?
Firing away.
I actually had to go. I had to go into the studio today.
I've been in the office the last 2 days. I went back to the studio the last 2 days. I'm the most miserable fuck that's ever lived.
And then I found out one of our folks who's key cog in our building is not getting vaccinated because he's an anti-vaxxer, and I was like, I'm not going back ever again.
Just by the way, just to be clear, it's because I can't take the 10-minute commute. I put 1,000 miles on my car last year. And the commute in, I'm like, I remember I cannot, I am already would you go? It's a green light, you son of a bitch. Let's go. It has nothing to do. Once I get to work, it's fine. Right.
Right.
That's all fine. It's just the A to B and B to A sucks ass so bad. I'm just like, oh my Lord.
You know what? Can I tell you one of the positives of being in studio today? John knows this.
Yell at Ari in person?
No, Ari and I are getting along pretty well for the last 2 days. No, I seriously think, I know this. I think standing to do the show makes me better. And I love standing for the entire show.
Makes
today.
you taller.
I think it keeps you more awake and more fired up. I think sitting actually is shitty for the show. So I might be the only one who believes this, but I actually don't like sitting. So I actually enjoyed today being able to walk around and jump around and get fired up. So I don't know if anyone liked it, but I was screaming and yelling today. But I like standing on the show.
You like standing?
When I would
Well,
produce,
give
I
that
would
a
prefer
try.
to stand. When
I
I would do shows in studio too.
I kind of guilted everyone into standing. John said when he produced.
Oh,
I
yeah.
preferred standing when I would produce.
By the way, I was asked, have I been there before 150 AP? Unfortunately, yes, but it is my new goal. I am not going into the office early. I'm doing all my work at home and then going in, which is what makes the office, there's always someone who wants to waste your time talking for forever.
Yes.
So
That's a problem.
it's they did remodel everything. I still can only hear in one ear of my headphones. So we got all these video studios and all this, which is really nice. The company's done a really nice job. But like, I'm like, is there a reason we can't like get sound in both ears? Like, I'm just.
Do you still go 2 cans or do you go 1 can off?
Well, I can do whatever I want now because only half the can works. So, of course, I got Jed yelling, "I got both ears. I got both ears. What about over there?" I'm like, I don't want to sit and swap headphones all day. Like bullshit. Yes, I have both ears in the studio. Then I go to the production studio and I got one ear.
Soren, can you tell the story on the air? Your show studio and then your video studio, because I think John would like that. There's a good if you want to pull back the curtain, or is it too dangerous?
No, I'll do it. I mean, it probably is, but it's late night happy hour, right?
Yep. John, you got to listen to what they set up at Soren Station.
Sorry, I had to grab the canned air because the cat's going crazy.
So while I was gone, like the ever-changing world of the media, right? Videos more and all this stuff. And so we converted some other different office space and one other studio to be more video intensive, right? So they got all these cameras and everything around, and you can now do video like we're doing right now, but no offense to our broadcast we're doing right now, multiple cameras from multiple angles and a switcher and whatnot and everything, which is great. I mean, it's the future and I'm all for it, right? I'm all about change and evolving and moving forward, clearly, as you can tell by looking at me. But so like I get this email, or we had a meeting, and it was like, all right, so, over in this studio, like we got the video, we got everything, and it looks really cool. They've done a really good job. I mean, not that I'm the end all be all, right? But like, I think they've done a really good job. It's got red, white, and black are the colors of our station. And so it's got a red countertop. And so it's like a slick, modernistic looking thing that, like, if you're going to, do a video podcast or whatever, it looks great. And so we're sitting there like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay, so like, what's the, this is before I'd gone back into the office and we're on a Zoom, and I'm like, okay, so like, all right, I go, yeah, I get it. I got it. That's great. Like, so we get to normal times, which theoretically we kind of are now. I'm like, so what am I supposed to use this? Well, you got a guest coming in studio. Well, I have a lot of guests that come in studio, right? Got a guest that comes in studio, then we can video them in there. I'm like, oh, okay. I got it. Yeah, it's great. I love the idea. And I'm like, that's awesome. And like, yeah, it's good. I said, so like when the guest comes in studio, then I'm supposed to take like my computer, my iPad, my notebook, and all my shit I got laid out, my water, my soda, my pens, my phone, and then I'll gather all that shit up during the 3.5 minute break, and then I'll take it into a new place, and we'll do a segment. And then when we're done with that segment, then I'll gather my water, my soda, my phone, my notebook, my iPad, my computer, and I'll unplug all that shit and I'll gather it all up and I'll go back into the studio we're in. And like somebody actually went like, well, yeah. I was like, well, here's a thought. How about we put the cameras in the studio I'm in, and then I won't have to gather all my shit up to like go to someplace else and videotape it. And I was told, I don't think you're understanding what we're talking about. It's like, oh, okay.
No, I do.
Wow.
No, I do.
No, I don't even know. When I get that, I don't even answer anymore because my point's been made.
Right.
And it's now just like, okay, it's like whatever. Next person to talk loses. You lose. Right? Like,
Soren, you don't just show up and talk?
No, that's exactly what I do.
Yep.
Fatty shows up and bangs his cymbals at 2:00. Right? You wind me up, and at 2.
I like that.
That's what happens.
That's like when I was producing at Lotus, and we had this new website, this big unveiling, and there was a part of the website that had a question about. There was just like a Twitter feed on the side, and it was literally just the program. You can go on like media sites, and it has the Twitter feed of all the personalities on the right side. Well, this one just had the ESPN Twitter account. Like, it was literally just one Twitter account on the feed. So I was like, hey, you guys, I think a good idea would be to add the hosts. You know what I mean? Like Steve, and at the time it was Mitch and Paul and all the. Like, you should put all the hosts in there. And the person turns to me and goes, "Who are you?" And I go, just the producer of the afternoon drive show, but that wasn't the question.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Listen, I am in no way. I want to be clear. I work in the best place that I've ever worked. That's why I've been there for 20 years, right? I have a great work environment, and I appreciate that the company is investing in the future. So it is like, seriously, it's first world problems. But there was just the element of like,
Why?
It's a studio that mostly is not supposed to be for the shows. It's for like additional stuff. Right. So it is a great setup, and I've already used it in the 2 days I've been there a couple of times. It's a great setup. But there was just this element. I'm like, okay, I'm sitting home like, so you want to video what I'm doing, so you're rigging up the video somewhere else.
Would you get the cool between shots like during commercial breaks if you like scrambling to get everything? So when people are watching, they're able to watch.
Look at this
gas.
fat ass in gym shorts and a hoodie trying to carry 7 things he's dropping along the way. It's just kind of like when you sit out for 4 hours, I just want to sit here. Like where I'm sitting right now, like over the 13, 14 months, like I got it all. I got everything set where I want, and I sit down and it's all here. And it's like, this is not really like, if you want me to be on top of every story that's going on and a Twitter feed and, all the shit that's happening, like I need some screens, right? They don't just like, I'm not Al Franken from 1981 Saturday Night Live Mobile Unit 4 with a, 5 screens strapped to my waist all around me that get up and move with me while I walk through the halls, right? It's not how it works,
By the way, let's stick with this on A10 before we get back to Lotus. So Joe Jayhawk says, I think A10 buys their electronics at the same place you got the 42 extension cord. So I did go to an estate sale a couple of weeks ago, and I bought a bin that I had no idea what was in there. It was just like, hey, $10 for the bin. And I was like, oh, shit, look at all these extension cords, 42 of them. But what I love the most is who made the comment earlier, are you guys going off the air all the time? What's going on there?
I mean, I don't think so, but then like my personal listening is usually the stream, which the stream doesn't go down, right? So like the towers, we'll shit the bed more than
Does A10 have a sign that says XX days since the last time we went off the air?
Like as far as like our tower signal, I would say we're more like a 3 or 4 year old. I mean, we're gonna shit the bed more than like your adult type of approach. But I've always said, when somebody be like, oh, I mean, what's the deal? I'm like, hey, then we can fire you and fix a lot of shit up at the tower. Are you good for it? Oh, whoa, no, whoa. I'm like, exactly.
We'll get by.
Right. So we try to take care of our people. And in the end, we jerry rig some things. But I think it's part of our charm, right? We're local. We're not some big conglomerate putting, I know one of the conglomerates here in town. I know some folks that work over at it, and they're like, yeah, we put like $9 million into like our studios, and they're fantastic. And then they filed bankruptcy, right? And then they fired a bunch of people. Well,
right.
Beautiful studios, shit always works. No one's got a job. Like we'll go ahead and wrap some aluminum foil around some shit and keep everybody working, right? So listen, we have our moments, we have our issues. There's no doubt, but it is what it is.
On the website person who asked John who he was, Brady says, does that person still run the wonderful Lotus website?
I don't believe she does. I don't think she works there anymore, right?
No comment.
Okay. I haven't seen her, but I never go in studio anymore or do anything. I'm a mercenary.
Yes, Brady, it's status quo. Yes, nothing has changed. And should I do this?
Do it.
Nah, I won't do it.
Do it.
We had a website redesign. We've had some trouble this week, but we've had a website redesign. And one of the basic things that they forgot to include, because what happens is when they redesign the website, they don't necessarily ask the people who actually use the website, the personalities and the producers, like what they need on the website, Seren.
Right.
So we came up with a whole new podcast page and podcasting, but there's no ability to actually download the shows anymore. And there's no individual link for interviews or for the show. And we've for 2 months, we're like, my God, we need this. Like, it's kind of important. Like, I have PR people we book interviews with. We have clients. Like, we need direct links for the interviews, and it's what happens in radio. Again, we have a good local group. They had a little, we did fire some people, which sucks, and I hope they come back. But sometimes when a company is big enough that they don't get with the little people on what the little people need and what the
little people do,
and what
their theoretical little people are actually way bigger than they think.
Right, and it makes our job a lot more difficult. So yeah, we're working through it like A10 is still.
So did you? But like they didn't ask you because you were busy banging your cymbals, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Monkey bang cymbals, right? Yeah.
I mean, what are you gonna do?
By the way, much love to Johnny Dare, who's like an iconic morning figure here in KC.
Yeah.
Who gave me that, thought a long time ago, 20 years ago. It's like, hey, bang your cymbals, shithead. Just bang your cymbals. Let's go. Come on out. Come see the radio monkey bang his cymbals.
Brady's a load of
Brady had a great one. What did he say? The site looks like it's running DOS.
Yeah. Dude,
what's funny is it's actually like really upgraded from what it really
it's really not.
Well, like from a bells and whistles standpoint, like it looks a lot. You know what I mean?
Images, but the problem is there's images on top of images, and then it's like, who can fix this? And so I need to stop. I need people to actually do stuff for the show and help us. So I got to stop. Soren, you had some questions about the NBA, and I wanted to ask John, starting off on the NBA playoffs. John, did you see the yes no at Circa on the Lakers? The Lakers are over 5-1 now for the title. Is this actually a time to jump on the yes? Because the no is like minus 810 to win the title.
I still feel like I want more like 7-ish to 1 on them to win the title.
Lakers are 5-1 right now. They probably hit a peak of about 2.5 to 1 earlier in the season.
Oh yeah, like I think William Hill had him at like plus 180. William Hill's always been kind of like high on them just because of liability, but I still think like the path that they would potentially have to take, you're still getting some watered down odds. Like if you're going to put the Lakers at 7-1 as a book, 8-1, you're going to get like pounced on with a lot of money, and the liability is really going to start to build. So I still think at like 5-ish to 1, that's still not enough for me. Like I still want 7-8 to 1 if I'm going to bet them to win the whole thing.
What do you got, Soren? Fire some NBA.
Well, I mean, so like who is the favorite right now? Like I think this is an interesting time, particularly from a betting standpoint, because the Nets have gotten to the 2 seed, but we know playoff basketball is different than regular season basketball. And I do think the Nets are equipped. I think they have the pieces to play really good. And if the Nets storm through the playoffs and won the championship, like I'm not going to be stunned, but they've had 7 games, I think it is, this year where the big 3 have all played. And again, they're still up there towards the top without them. So if you wanted to say, hey, shove it, fat man, because it only takes 2 of the 3 and they'll win it. I think there's some validity to that, but I also think that playoff basketball is different, and they've been getting hurt about every 3 weeks, right? One of them. Mm-hmm. Why is they're going to make it through 6 weeks of playoffs without one of them getting hurt? I think we're finally there where LeBron, who invests, as everyone has read many times, $1 million a year in what he does with his nutritionists and his trainers and all that. Nobody's done more to take care of their body than LeBron James, and he's finally breaking down. Like eventually old teams break down. And one of these old teams, the Lakers or Nets, might steal a title, but like Kevin Durant is breaking down. James Harden has started to begin to break down and has never been Mr. Workout Warrior fitness guy. Kyrie Irving is the biggest flake the league has seen since I don't know who. And will sit out games. And listen, I'm not trying to minimize mental health because mental health is real. And he dances around the mental health side of things. And if he's, Kevin Love has said, hey, I have real mental health issues, which I respect and appreciate. And he's done a lot for people that battle mental health. But Kyrie Irving, it's always kind of this, well, he does. He's not in. He's out. Yeah, I don't know where he's at. like they're like a ticking time bomb. So I think this is actually a time where, like maybe the Sixers actually do get it done, right? Maybe, out West, you can throw the Lakers out, and even without Jamal Murray, the Nuggets get it done. Maybe the Jazz, who are up at the top of the standings, or the Suns, right? Because they're not household names, this is their time to break through and win a championship. Next year and the year after and the year after, if they go to 3 finals in the next 5 years and win 2 of them, we'll remember oh my God, Devin Booker and holy shit, all the different Jazz players, they're household names. We don't know them now because the changing of the guard is happening. So I do think that there's, especially from a gambling standpoint and just from an NBA fan standpoint, are we witnessing the changing of the guard? Because I've never, ever heard in the NBA mainstream media an announcement that the guard has changed. It's always after the fact, right? After the fact, oh, yeah, it was great. Even when Jordan broke through, it wasn't like this son of a bitch is going to win 6 of the next, 8 championships. It's not what they said. It was oh my God, well, he got by the Lakers, but they were old and they were tired. They were still making excuses for why he won, why it was still not Jordan's time. Now we look back and it's oh God, he kicked everybody's ass. When in reality, he was the guy who couldn't win the big one. Anyone who lived through that era remembers how Jordan was knocked for 6 years until he finally won the championship in his 7th, and he wasn't a lock to win it in his 8th. So I'm always interested in calling your shot on the next dynasty, right? Were the Chiefs the next dynasty when Mahomes lost to Tom Brady? He was once he won because everybody wants to ride the wave. But is anybody saying the Chiefs are going to win 5 of the next 6? No, they're the favorite, all that. But so I think the NBA is basically there's a very kind of much more wide open than people may realize. And I would love for either monetarily somebody throw down a huge bet to say, my shit's on the Jazz, or I'm all about don't worry, the Nets have just been toying around with the regular season. They're going to kick everyone's ass and never lose more than 1 game in any series. I think it's a little bit more open, and I would love to see the guy who sticks his flag in the ground and says, this is the team, and ends up being proven right.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think if you're talking about there's a lot of angles to it, right? You brought one of the teams that I've really started to, and I shouldn't even say start to come around on. I bet them before the season started. I got the Sixers. It's 34-1 to win the title right before the year started. That was more of a value.
And now they're 9-10-1, right?
Yeah, they're 9.25 or something like that. And that was a value grab. That's a number that, hey, this is going to be much shorter by the time we reach the end of the road. And sure enough, it is. But it's also a team, I think they've won 7 straight, something like that at this point right now. They're peaking at the right time heading into the postseason. And I think you're absolutely right. When it comes to a team like the Nets in the pecking order of the Eastern Conference, the value, as everybody always likes to use the V word, the value isn't betting against the Brooklyn Nets to win a title. At Circa, I mentioned those 2-way markets. It's a pick, -115 both ways. Yes, no, that they win the Eastern Conference. That's a lot of value on the no for a team that is shaping up to be potentially the Clippers from last year, right? The Clippers had no continuity. They barely played together. And then sure enough, what happened? They blew a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets, and they didn't even make it to their conference finals. Those kind of issues are going to be on that. See, no Nets. Where'd you get that, Steve? -275? Because I got Circa right in front of me. You can get no -115 at Circa to win the Eastern Conference. So that's a little bit a different way to attack it too. But Philadelphia has a big man that can destroy them inside, one of their biggest weaknesses, right? The Milwaukee Bucks, we just watched them beat them twice. And yeah, James Harden wasn't on the court, but they have really solid wing defenders in Giannis and Drew Holiday that can match up very well. Chris Middleton too. There's weaknesses for Brooklyn. Now, I think Brooklyn, when they're whole, is the best team, I think, in the NBA. The problem is they haven't been whole. And so you can't really count on that going into the postseason, where their big 3 have played 8 games now, I think, together, with Harden back on the court tonight. So I understand completely the trepidation for the Nets. My thing has always been the peaks in which we have seen them when they're fully together have been so freaking high that I think that's why they still get the respect that they're getting, at least at this point right now,
So can you parlay up a no Nets for the championship with other bets?
At Circa, I believe you can parlay futures. Yeah, it depends on the shop that you're looking at. I don't know about DraftKings off the top of my head, But yeah, Circa, I know you can.
So I could parlay up no Nets, no Bucks, no Lakers.
Yeah, you would theoretically, be able to parlay futures. Yep.
Okay. Because that to me is where the action is. I mean, that's where you can, 3, 4, 5 different, like 3 to 7, whatever, 5, 6, 7 team or 7 bet parlays can get you to where you've got high probabilities on each one that creates a long shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think really the way I would attack it is, and like I said, that 115 is going to be there. Like the no on the Nets is the way to go. Like I have picked them in all of our publications to make it to the finals and everything like that. But again, value it's not so much about what you picked; it's where it's betting is where the value is, and like mathematically, monetarily, implied probability, the value is in betting against the Nets to win the whole thing or to win the Eastern Conference. So instead of parlaying it, I personally would just be putting money on the Nets not to win. Aaron Renning, he's a professional handicapper, very good NBA handicapper. He bet the no on the Lakers to win the title, and he moved that quite a bit. It was just under 250 at the no minus 250. Now it's about I think minus 450, something like that. See, I have to actually have it right in front of me. But a lot of people, they'll see numbers with the minus next to them and think there's not value in them. In reality, there actually is.
Because, like a no on the Nets, like I'll give you an example and throw in one that has some real chance, right? So one of the things today, and I saw it was up there, I said today, the Royals were like minus 130 or something against the Tigers with Danny Duffy on the mound because Duffy's been really good. And the Royals had lost 9 in a row. And I'm like, listen, when I used to bet baseball every day, let me tell you something. An object in a motion tends to stay in motion. And anytime you can bet a streak to continue, good or bad, and you're getting plus return on that streak in baseball, jump on it every time and you'll make a lot of money. And so if I could have parlayed the Tigers at I think it was plus 125 with a no on the Nets and find another future out there on that kind of spectrum, right, to where the plus one something delivers the juice to launch the number, I'd be laying out those kind of futures all over the place. And maybe it's even if you could take it with a football total, right? I know nobody wants to have their money tied up that long, but to me, that's where the real value is.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the downfall is, one, you're never really, for the most part, you're never always getting true odds in futures because liability is a big part of it. But also, you think you hit on the key point, which is sitting there and letting your money just sit for the months at a time.
But if you've got the money and if you're playing below your means, right? If you're not living off that's again where we go back to where we talk about being a professional gambler, you need returns.
Yeah.
Right? You have bills to pay. But if you're just a rich guy that just wants to stick it and have a picture of a ticket where you shoved, on the casinos, I can give you some long-term plays that I like the combinations where I think you could actually make a pretty good return when you parlay it all up.
Petro, did you see that? Adam said, I saw a guy at Circa parlay John Rahm to win the Masters with the Yankees to win the World Series with the Suns money line on that particular night. Suns lost.
Listen, you had somebody in the timeline who validated that I said tonight, take the Tigers on the plus side because there's no reason to take a team who's lost 9 in a row that's laying money, even though Danny Duffy's the better pitcher. Shit's not going their way. And so, I agree. Yes, they will shit the bed. But you find 10 of them and you hit on 2 of them, you made money.
Good job.
There you go. Giving credit where credit's due.
I appreciate that.
Lovely. Anything else on the NBA for now?
I do think it's a fascinating. I always find a reason. I use that term way too much, but just because sports fascinates me. But I do think it's a fascinating time with the NBA because I think there is an element of the changing of the guard, right? Mm-hmm. And you could see Jordan coming to an extent, right, to go back to a great era. I don't know that we saw the Warriors coming the way they did. And Steve and I have talked about it before that I believe that Steph Curry may be the most transformative player in the history of the NBA. Like, I'm not saying he's the best player, but Michael Jordan, fine, or LeBron, argue about who's the best, but nobody changed how the game is played as much as Steph Curry did. And so I think there are always those things there. And I don't think people saw the Warriors coming with their streak of dominance. Once Kevin Durant got there, yes. But the first Warrior title without Kevin Durant, like, I always like to look back and see, like, why didn't we see that coming? What were we missing?
Yeah.
And is there something we're missing right now about one of the teams that are in there? And, you know, the Jazz, I think, are pretty interesting because, like, have we reached a point where the volume shooting, right? Volume of shots is like one of the most underrated statistics in basketball. Now you know, you say that and you're like, oh, so you mean shoot a lot? Well, yes, but like to shoot a lot, you got to get more rebounds or more steals, more takeaways. Like there's a lot of shit that goes into having volume shooting. So it's more complex than just shoot a lot. Doesn't mean catch it and throw it at the basket as fast as you can, right? Because you got to get, you know, quality shots. There's a lot that goes into it. But I am kind of fascinated with everybody is buying in. Like, you know, if you're a fantasy player and you had Dame Lillard a few years ago, he was great. Now he's Steph Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, wow, that's incredible. But the Blazers aren't about ready to win a championship. Steph Curry is doing the kind of things he did when they were winning championships, but nobody's on the Warriors. They're in the play-in part of the equation, right? As are the Blazers. They're at least in the fight. So my point is that, like, everybody's throwing up the threes now. So what's going to be the new thing that defines a dynasty?
Yeah.
And I think that's in play right now. And,
what I think,
if you can figure, I'm sorry, one last thing,
Yeah.
JVT, because if you can define that from a gambling standpoint, you can make a lot of money. If you can see over the horizon, you can make a lot of money. But just for me, like 5 years from now, somebody's gonna be like, holy shit, yeah, we knew this team was gonna be great. And right now, I don't know who says for the next 5 years, this team's gonna kick ass.
yeah, no, I would agree with that. Like, well, I actually personally, I think we're entering an era of, for lack of a better term, like chaos. Like I don't see a dynasty happening because I just think so many of these teams, once a LeBron leaves, right, once he retires, you know, Kevin Durant kind of on the tail end, especially, you know, the Achilles accelerates that for the most part, right? Like once these dominant players are near the end, I just see a whole bunch of teams that are kind of on the same level with one another. And I think that's the more intriguing part about it is I think we're entering like a stretch where for over a 10-year period, you're going to see maybe like a one repeat champion. But I think there's so many of these teams that are just on so many similar levels. You know, a team like the Jazz, you mentioned the volume shooting. The intriguing part about a team like the Jazz is, you know, a lot of people will compare them to the Houston Rockets from a couple of years ago, right? The Houston Rockets were taking like nearly 50 3-point attempts per game. The difference between that team and this Jazz team is that Rockets team was just inefficient from an efficient area of the floor. It's like a phrase I always use. They'd shoot like 36% on like 50 3-point attempts per game. This Jazz team's taking like 45 3-point attempts a game and shooting 42%. Like that's what makes them really intriguing, but they have their flaws in terms of not having a big wing defender to handle a LeBron James, to handle a Kawhi Leonard. I just see a whole bunch of teams surrender that are like really on even footing with one another. And in the next few years, I could see Giannis winning a title and then coming back and losing to Joel Embiid in the Eastern Conference Finals and then winning a title the year after that. Like I just kind of see some chaos coming forward because I don't think there is any dominant team. And all these people are complaining about super teams. It's not really about super teams anymore. It's like there's duos now that are all like littering a bunch of these teams. But there's no like outside of Brooklyn, it's a bunch of gimpy guys who haven't played together. There's no super team.
That's why if Brooklyn doesn't win, we maybe see the changing of the guard of stop trying to find the super team and, you know, find the team that can all shoot and everything else. So I do think it's, you know, like I said, I always find a reason to find every year fascinating, but so I use that term too much. But I do think this one is unique.
If it's balanced over the next 6 or 7 years, you realize that is a disaster for the NBA. It's a disaster because, well, the same people who bitch about super teams won't watch when there's balance.
Right.
Unless they believe.
I've seen it happen too many times. When there's eras with balance, the same people who bitched about Jordan, and then there was a little bit of balance until the Lakers.
Right.
They didn't watch. So John says it all the time. Stop trying to placate and talk to people who simply don't watch the NBA. They're going to complain no matter what and tune out no matter what.
Well, I don't think, and the NBA's ratings have risen to a point that they don't have to try to, go
Stop.
attract people.
Let Manfred deal with the 50-plus-year-olds.
No, really, let baseball
Well,
deal with them. Because
that's
the
what I was
NBA has a massive amount of young fans, and their future is bright.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Baseball is the one that's got a problem in finding their fan base. But to your point, yeah, you're right. Like, I do think that dynasties do sell, villains and heroes sell. And so if it's like, the NFL's made parody work, but it's because the game is inherently violent. And I think there's an element of that. And, but I think the NBA and basketball with the three and the athleticism and the dunk and different things, I think the NBA is the closest thing to, like, I will sit down and watch an NBA game, right? TNT, ESPN, they got an NBA game, I'm going to watch. I played fantasy baseball longer than I played any sport. And there's the national baseball game, no chance I'm watching. None. I'm watching Royals only. And even that is somewhat job driven. Shit.
Mm-hmm.
I got to talk about this shit tomorrow. I got to check it out. Like right now, they're a 10-game losing streak. Like my nephew calls me and goes, I told you the Royals are trash. They're trash. Why are you watching this? Right? God love him. He's a huge sports fan. You know what he's watching? He's watching the NBA. In Kansas City with no NBA team, he loves the NBA and tells me the Royals are trash. Why are you watching that?
That's why the people who bitch about it, like Steve knows, I'm relatively ageist. Like the people who bitch about it, like it's fine. Like don't watch. They're gonna be fine because the people who they're placating, like they don't care about you. They have their base. It's growing. It's only getting older and more mature, so they're gonna spend more money because they're gonna get more money, right? As they grow in their careers, like screw off with this. And by the way, it's absolutely fantastic. Like if you actually watch the product, it's really good. I think parody's good for any sport, but you're right. Like where dynasties, villains, like you kind of need that to a certain extent. But I think there's an intrigue where you go into a season and you go, like, you have your favorites, but would it be insanely shocking if, the fourth seed won a title this year? No, I think that's the draw of like a college basketball. Like that's the draw of all those. And
that's the draw of hockey.
Right? Yeah, right.
6, 7, 8 seeds can win, right? Then the Vegas Knights can be an expansion team and get there.
Well, it's the NFL too, right? Like I can be the 7th seed. I can be a wild card and think my team has a shot. Like, and I think there is some intrigue in that if the NBA can, moves in that direction.
I will say this. There are a lot of like highlights on ESPN and in games I watch where, look, from 32 feet and there are 8 guys standing there with their thumb in their ass. Like, it's kind of like one-on-one, step back, and 8 guys, like, offensively, there's not a lot of motion and movement, and there's not a, like, lockdown. Now, when we go to the playoffs, I think the NBA playoffs take it up a notch. I think the problem is the you can't give it for 82 games. I do think the NBA would be wise, big picture. I know they lose revenue to cut the number of games. And this year is a freak show with 72 games in the short period of time they're trying to do it. So this is not a good, but it to me, it's magnified the problem of too many games in a season. And guys are not giving it all. We know about, load management, benching of guys. But there's also the, here comes the guy. I know he's going to shoot a 3. Fuck it. I'll see if I can get a rebound, because I'm not stepping out. So there are times I have seen this year, particularly where there's more games every other night. Everybody seems to be playing. And there's a lot of just like thumb and ass, 8 guys standing around watching one guy bring it up and step back and let it fly.
Well, I would say, so 2 things on that. One, I think what's lost on this season, because I've seen a lot of complaints about this year and, the injuries, everything, the compact schedule, I think, is lost on a lot of people. Like the way that the second half of this schedule has had to play out because of postponements and COVID in the first half. For those who don't remember, the NBA released only half the schedule at the beginning of the year because they knew that they were going to have to move things around. Teams like the Spurs and the Grizzlies had to play 41 games in the stretch of like 63 days. Like that's a lot of fucking games to play for these teams in a really compact schedule. And so you get some of that. And I'd also say too, I think it's a little unfair to say that like, hey, I watched this highlight and some guys were standing around. That's one possession of a 102 or 103.
Yeah, but if you watch the game, come on. When you watch the game, like it's not like they found the isolated moment where
Well, no,
there,
I'm
there
saying,
wasn't crisp like it's not NCAA tournament basketball every
But-
night in the NBA.
well, but I'd also say that like that's every sport, right? Like you're not going to see highlights of the handoff up the middle for 2 yards. You're not going to see the guy take the ball on the corner,
Right,
like
from
all
the
this
highlights.
kind of-
But would you agree that there's a lot of standing around? There's a lot of I'm checking this out, and if you play with James Harden, shit, there's no reason to move. Period. But I mean, would you agree that that's not? It's not the, the motion offense of Bobby Knight is not happening in the NBA. I mean, 5 guys moving constantly, like that's not what we're watching.
No, not every single night, but I also think it's kind of overblown how there is a thought that every single night, every single possession, it's just ISO ball every single time, and like that's just
That's
not
fair.
the case when you watch these guys play.
I think we're 90% on the same page.
Right, yeah, and
Arguing
that's
over
always
the
what I've
last
pushed.
10%.
Right, yeah, like that's what I've always pushed back on. If you talk like the other day, I tweeted out there was this clip of this kid in AAU, and it was like a 10-15 second clip, and he's just like dribbling back and forth. He throws the ball at the kid's face, it bounces off his face, he catches it again, then he step backs, and then like it's just like a clanker. It just hits back iron. And I retweeted it. It was like, this is what old people see when they watch the NBA every single night. Like there is some beauty to the game, teams at the top, like the Utah Jazz, they don't really sit around a lot. There is some ball movement for the Utah Jazz. Like there's a lot of good teams that do a lot of good things.
Oh, I hope the Jazz win. I think if the Jazz win the championship, it'll be good for basketball.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why, I'm always going to stick up for the NBA because I really enjoy the sport. And I'm a big fan of it, and I think it gets a bad rap. I think a lot of it, too, is somewhat racial when it comes to a lot of the people who criticize it. And that's a big problem, part of it, too. But I think the game itself is pretty good. And even like Harden, like this year, he's changed his role a lot. Harden gets a lot of crap. Like his role's been a lot different if you've actually watched him play. I know I've stressed to Steve a lot, like watch him when he's on the court with these guys. And there have been games where Kyrie and KD don't play, and he reverts back to old Harden. But like Harden with those two on the floor, has been sharing the ball. He's been moving around.
There's only been 7 games where the 3 of them were together.
Yeah, of course. And you've had to see that. But like when this team is going to be at its peak, it's going to be a different type of thing. And I would stress that you actually, that people who criticize it a lot and don't really watch it should probably watch a little bit more.
If the 3 of them are on the court together and able to go 100%, they damn well better win.
Yeah.
Right. And they should win. And that's what happens when you have 3 great players. But question is, can they get everyone on the floor and actually play all the playoff games together?
John, what about this comment? NBA season ends, then off to Cancun. What a way to end one of the worst regular seasons in major sports history. This regular season was a joke, from load management to games off for no reason, and fans bailing left and right.
Well, the fans aren't bailing left and right, just like the NFL. They just signed a pretty lucrative deal. Like they're going to be fine. But I'd also say, like, again, so this has been my thing with games off for no reason. Tell me the player who should be playing. Tell me the player who is not playing because of like a fake injury. I guess is that what we're using here, right? Like we can go through the list of all
I
these.
will give you the half the Pistons roster. They're tanking.
The team is tanking, correct. So the worst team that nobody's going to watch anyway, yes, they are resting their starters.
Which is shitting on my fantasy team because I have a couple of Pistons.
Right. But like
in a daily sub league, I can put guys in, and like I don't have the time to be sitting there at 550. Shit, is Mason Plumlee playing?
Mm-hmm.
God damn it. I gotta know.
But that is part of daily fantasy now. You have to know who's tanking.
And mine's not daily fantasy, mine's a yearly fantasy league, but I can change the lineup every day.
Right.
And so,
I didn't mean DFS. I meant fantasy where you can change it every day.
Like this, for example, I don't know if this is in jest, but like a high ankle sprain is a very serious injury.
Right. No, I agree, but the fact, and I agree, and I appreciate the rally, man, as much as anybody, but
Tiger Gator does have a record of kind of being a little bit anti-black, so.
Really? Okay, well, that's news to me. But I will say this, that I do think LeBron at 36, like this is what happens. You get hurt and you don't come back. Other guys are back in, 14 days. You get older, it takes longer to come back. And that's one of the things about this year. Can the Lakers put it all together and make a run? I kind of don't think so. I think Anthony Davis is old beyond his years. He's been banged up his whole career. And like LeBron's been a rock, and now he's starting to get banged up. 2 of the last 3 years, he's been banged up.
Yep.
Missing games for no reason. That's just
just not true, but that's fine.
We'll wrap it up. I would also say missing.
Wait, what about Vegas getting baseball?
Let's get out of here.
Let's do it. Dude, I want baseball here. Let's go. I want NBA too, but baseball.
All right, John wants to keep going. John, where do you want the stadium?
Rio, right? It's got to be the spot.
Where the Rio is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that land still up for grabs?
Behind it
Has that been
or
purchased?
on the Rio?
They would blow up the Rio and use all that property to build some
Is
sort
the
of.
Rio out of business?
No, Rio got sold, and now basically it's whatever. It's being run by one company, and so it's still going.
I mean, yeah, I think that's the. I
Where's
think that's
the World
optimal
Series of
spot.
Poker then?
At the Rio. Yeah, they're going to put it
Okay.
back at the Rio.
Okay.
I think the best sites are Rio on the just off the strip, across from the strip. I still think Wild Wild West, which is a Tropicana,
Yeah.
and the 15 would be awesome because the Tropicana, and I was talking about
Where Trop and the 15 is, it's like
Trop-
an In-N-Out burger.
right. So right across from that is the Wild Wild West, which is a kind of a more of a motel, a little bit of gambling
In
there.
between the In-N-Out and the Orleans.
Right across from the In-N-Out. Yep, it's right across the street. So,
Okay. Across from which street?
I guess what is it on? Is that Dean Martin there?
I think so.
No, is it across Trop or is it across the highway?
It's on In-N-Out. It's
Right.
there's I don't know what street is that industrial. What the hell? I'm all confused on streets now.
In-N-Out and
Dean
what
Martin.
is it?
So
Okay.
In-N-Out is on Dean Martin and Trop, but technically In-N-Out is also on the 15 and Trop.
Right.
I'm saying?
So is it across 15 or is it across Trop from the In-N-Out?
It's not across Trop or the 15. There's one
So
street.
it's west.
It's just west of the In-N-Out.
Okay. So towards the Orleans. So my original question,
Well,
in
I mean,
between the In-N-Out and the Orleans.
New Orleans is pretty far away, but yes.
Okay, in between the In-N-Out and Adult World.
Yes. But
I knew that'd get you.
the attractive part about the Wild Wild West is, and I'm sorry, we're talking hardcore Vegas here with Kansas City people. He's bringing up a map.
There you go.
He's right. So you can see right
I
here.
nail it.
So John's using his
Drop.
cursor. Yeah.
But for people
In-N-Out.
from KC, our studios were on the east side of the strip and the east side of the highways you're seeing there. And I would take a straight drive down Tropicana, and I
Wanna
live just
go-
off Tropicana. So
John, let's show where
Tropicana is the one street I actually know very well.
John, let's show where he was. He was at Trop and Swenson. So go east. That's where the studio.
Yeah.
Let's go to Trop and Swenson.
Really.
Right. So
Yeah.
keep going east. Okay. So you're about
That's the
there.
airport. That's the airport you see down
Yep.
there on the south side.
You're about there.
Just
You're almost
past
there.
it.
Right there. Right there. So right
there
there.
we were. And
There's
I
Trop-
lived at Trop and Torrey Pines.
Petro goes all the way down to Torrey Pines before Jones.
Go west, yeah.
So this is a
Or
straight
Boulder.
shot.
Straight shot.
Yep.
We had to show him this.
Where's
Right
Torrey
here.
Pines?
There's Torrey Pines right here. Yep.
Torrey
Yeah,
Pines.
there it is. That's where I lived.
So Seren would be directly down the road from my preferred site. And there's New Orleans. There's New
And
Orleans.
there's the Wild West. That was-
So I know what we're talking about.
So my point is where the Wild Wild West is, if you go right across the 15, as I pointed out the screen, if you go right across the 15 is actually where T-Mobile is. They could build a pedestrian bridge that would go from the arena to the baseball field, which I think would be awesome. And the strip is actually LV Boulevard is just to the right on the screen. You could walk from the strip over the bridge to the baseball stadium. So here's what's happening right now, because this is all speculation. Who knows if the A's are going to leave? Here's what's happening now. You're going to get a discussion in Vegas about roughly eight different sites. There are 3 on the strip. We just talked about 2 of them. Another one is the Wet and Wild site, which is actually down by the Sahara.
Old school.
Right.
It's actually on LV Boulevard. It's north. It's on North Las Vegas Boulevard.
Oh, wait, the Wet and Wild died like 20 years ago. I can't believe
They're-
you're still referring to that.
It's still vacant. It's an amazing piece of land, like right on the strip. That would be another candidate for a
Last
stadium.
day of school every year. Every year, last day of school, go to Wet and Wild.
That would be another candidate. And then there's a spot north, Cashman Field, which is actually within walking distance of downtown.
I think that'd be low key dope.
The city of Las Vegas owns that property because the other area we showed you is actually Clark County. It's not Las Vegas. People always get that wrong. Like when you hear Mayor Goodman, right? You hear Mayor Goodman talk about, hey, we want a team here. Like all she controls is a small portion of the area, right? And then the other areas are actually way south, Petro, right? There's 2 pieces of property that are just north of the South Point and just south of the South Point. You've seen this one, John, right?
Yes.
Star and LV Boulevard, Star in the 15. And then way down south is the M, and that's where the Raiders facility is. There's some Henderson sites. But for me, if you're baseball and you look at Las Vegas and you see what the Raiders have and what the Golden Knights have right around the Strip, are you going to go to the burbs? Are you not going to be on the Strip with your baseball stadium?
Do you have a choice?
So,
It's a good point, too.
You know?
Well, who's paying for the stadium?
Right.
Who's paying for the property?
so I appreciate the where we put it, and like, are you going to fill it?
Great question. What do you think, John?
Phil, like, sell out every single night. Obviously, that would be, I think, relatively tough in the long term, but I think it would be supported.
Well, then why bring baseball here if we can't sell out?
I mean, does every single team sell out every single home game every single night over an 81 game schedule?
I think if you move a team, what do you think, Petro? You got to average 32,000 a night. If you move a team from a failing market to a new market, I think you got to average 30 or 32,000 a game.
So in 2019, there was a big pat on the back for what are the 51s now, which, by the way, 51's best name ever. Like, what the hell are they now? Aviators. The Aviators had a big slap on the back with their new stadium, beautiful stadium, right? By all accounts,
Yep.
Up there in Summerlin, right?
Sure. Right down the road from me. I live in Summerlin. Not really.
Yeah.
But
So they drew 651,000 fans, an average of 9,300 fans a game.
right. Well, that's about the max, though. The stadium holds like 95.
Max capacity, yeah, right. Like it's a minor league stadium.
They did well.
Right. So I saw Randy Gisarelli, who was one of the founders of Baseball Prospectus. A couple of the other guys. Anyway, they were tweeting back and forth about like Vegas as a destination site. And the vibe basically was, listen, you have to be a regional draw if you're not going to be a market that can just overwhelm the stands. Right. And everyone's like, oh, look what they're doing for the Knights. Well, the Knights do 750,000, right? Like, you suck in baseball now if you're not pulling 2 million. So you got to go, time and a half again over what the Knights are pulling, which the Knights are a huge success story. And by the way, the Knights are going to draw against your ticket base. And so I do think it's a lot. I personally think Vegas is not ready for baseball.
I agree.
They may get it, but like, you've got football. Football will be a regional draw beyond driving distance, but baseball is our market. And if you're not a market that's big enough, like New York, Chicago, all the big markets, then you better have regional. Like if you went to Charlotte, you have Raleigh, Durham. Like there's a huge population base within a 1 to 2.5 hour drive.
Right.
Like you make it a weekend and come in for the games, right? Yep. In Vegas, you got to drive hours and hours to find population. There's Pahrump and however many people are in Pahrump. And what is it? Greenland or what? Or no, what's Laughlin? There's little pockets here and there.
There's nothing else. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's like it's all Vegas.
Yeah.
And with the hockey and the football there, like if I were in the baseball office, I'd be like, listen, I like Vegas as a future market, but not with the red hot Knights and football just lighting the fuse. No. Like, I don't think you can put the fans in. And I don't think people are coming to, we'll give it to casino players. They're not paying for it. Right. And if they don't want to go because they got baseball in their town, they've been to baseball games, and it's not their team there, like nobody watches national baseball, period. Like regional baseball will pull ratings. Royals pull great ratings. The national games in this town don't pull shit. So you're not going to get somebody from Kansas City be like, oh, we got the Vegas A's against the Diamondbacks. Oh, well, shit, give me tickets. No, they're not going.
Right. Yeah, I think we'd have to average, like I said, 32,000, minimum 27,000 a game, and for that, I think it would have to be on the Strip, and you would have to hope that you would get an average of like 5,000 a night from the Strip. So
You're not averaging 32,000 unless you're red hot winning.
yeah, and so putting it in Henderson or even putting it downtown is just silly. So it's strip or bust, and then I have no idea who's going to pay for it. So
I wouldn't be heartbroken. I think the NBA would do a lot better anyway.
Yep.
In this city. But
I think it's easier to do better because you need less fans to do it. But I do think the thing that I think is interesting is if you look at the odds on where the A's are going to go, like I would bet against Vegas because if fatty talk show hosts can figure this out, then I think baseball can figure it out. If there was like a no Vegas bet, I would lay a lot of money on that.
Yep.
Vegas 7-4, Montreal 5-1, Nashville 11-1, Charlotte 6-1, Portland 6-1, San Diego 8-1, Indianapolis 12-1, San Jose 12-1, Austin 14-1, Oklahoma City 14-1, Vancouver 14-1, Louisville 16-1. Not 150-1, right? All these are sub 20. Now, look, I'm not like when I look at those numbers. This is what I've told you, Steve. You know me. I'm a nerd about expansion. Like I believe we have way too few professional teams in this country, and like I wish the government, instead of running around trying to arrest and jail for 30 days a bunch of assholes we've never heard about in college basketball, right? Like how many millions of dollars the FBI spend jailing a bunch of people you've never heard of in college basketball and change nothing. We're paying billions of dollars to fund these stadiums on all professional sports. So go in and say like bullshit, we're going to fund it all. Then you got to put some teams out there. Like I think all our professional sports leagues should be moving towards 40 teams. Like those are good markets that baseball could serve. And if you go, well, baseball should do this. When I talk to Jeff Passan, they should do this. Like it's really not Passan. It's like when I talk to NFL guys, like, well, it's the same thing you hear about conference expansion. Bigger pieces of the pie. Yes, we can bring more teams in, but it just shrivels down how much we get. Do they really expand our television revenue? Well, at some point, it's fuck you because we're paying for everything with our government dollars. So get more teams in the markets and give more people a chance to see what's going on. Meanwhile, we pay for all these stadiums, and then we allow them to basically be a mafia that says we're going to restrict baseball from being in these markets. Nashville, Charlotte, Portland, San Antonio, Indianapolis, they would all support baseball at least as well as Kansas City does. They're as bigger than Kansas City. Why shouldn't they have baseball? Well, we don't want to cut the pie as much. Okay, well then no more tax dollars, right? No more antitrust. Like the bullshit that goes on in the government, sweating college basketball because some kid got 40 grand to wear a certain pair of shoes or go to a certain school, but you won't get into the billions of dollars that are going on in the professional sports teams and use some muscle there. Just shows how chicken shit every politician is.
yeah. No, I love it. I love it.
Oh, sorry. This is from Adam Hill.
This is a good way to close it out.
It's from Adam.
What the hell is this?
Top cities for barbecue in the U.S.
Do it, John. Do it.
Let's see. We'll start at number.
I'm actually closing out. If you're going to put this up there,
I don't even see number 10. Where's number 10?
it's like
There is no
you've
number
got to
10.
be shitting me.
So we tied Newark and Miami for number 9. Number 8, St. Louis, Missouri. Number 7, Seattle, Washington. Number 6, Columbus, Ohio.
New Orleans is number 1 for barbecue.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Tied for
Are you
3rd, Virginia
fucking
Beach,
kidding me?
Wichita. Number 2, Oklahoma City. Number 1, New Orleans. I don't know why Adam would send this. It seems pretty random.
Just to jack with me.
Exactly.
Virginia Beach, Virginia. 3rd best barbecue city in the country.
Yep. Damn. I thought KG was.
The purpose was to piss me off going out the door.
Look, Mark. No Kansas City, Memphis, or Austin. Not in there.
And by the way, we shit in the ear of Memphis and Austin over this discussion. And like, at least we bother to shit in their ear. I wouldn't even waste the time with any town up there.
Seattle. You can't beat Seattle for barbecue. That's what I've always heard.
I didn't know Newark was like this hot spot for barbecue. It's pretty cool.
Yes, the Portuguese love the barbecue. They love cooking the barbecue.
All right, I'm done. Close
Yeah.
this out. That's
All right.
enough.
That was it. Thanks, Adam, with your proxy, your troublemaker.